I mean, these meetings were ugly. They were ugly in the extreme.
The nightmare.
And they were not easy to sit through, not by any means. At the end of the 3.5 years, this paper got published, and Mickey and Dwayne and I were asked to speak over and over and over again around the country, and the foundation then started shifting gears in terms of what it was doing. It started supporting projects around the country. And there were projects, literally something like 27 universities received very, very large grants to initiate DBAE kinds of curricula and programs. And one of the things that's really crazy, I didn't bring it, everybody wanted to know what should this curriculum look like exactly. And Getty had a policy saying we will never publish a curriculum document. So everybody was free to interpret this paper, which was in the middle of this book. The first 4 papers are background to the paper. The second 4 papers are by an art historian, an art critic, and an esthetician. And all of them are talking about the curriculum, which is in the middle of the book, of the magazine. And finally, Getty relented enough to give Mickey money enough to develop a notebook.
I have a copy in my room. I can get it.
It looks about like that one, but it doesn't have the film strips in it. It just has paper. But it was suggestions of what a DBA curriculum might look like. And everybody then jumped on this Getty money and all these projects around the country, and everybody started producing what they thought a Getty program would look like. And interestingly, Getty refused almost all of these projects, and as they refused it, they cut off the money. So people would start off with a big bang and a big flurry and a big effort to produce curriculum, and a year later they would find out they no longer were getting any Getty money. And just like that, I mean, it was absolute pure, you've got it or you don't have it, and that's all there was to it. Getty was very gross about telling people exactly how they stood. When the project was over, the project was over, and that was it. One of the little benefits that we got was the ERIC, ERIC, Educational
Resource Information Center.
Very good. Educational Resource Information Center. There were a number of different ERIC centers around the country, and we were the only one doing art. And we got that money through the Getty Foundation, and I did it for a couple of years.
You were the director of it.
I was the director of it, and then you came on, and you started doing it, and then you took over totally. And
take over. You were my boss.
No, I was happy to get out of it. But this went on for a bit of a time, and I wrote this, which was an argument against DBAE, which was interesting.
And it was produced by ERIC.
This was produced by ERIC, yes, as a document for ERIC. This paper, I would have to go way back in time and start all over again if I were to give you the real background. But what I argued in this paper was there are a lot of curriculum ideas in the United States. One of the most pervasive curriculum concepts was that there should be, in a school program, community-centered, subject matter-centered, and
and society-centered.
Society-centered curriculum content. And that the society should be looked at as a whole, the community should be looked at as a whole, and the subject matter should be looked at as a whole. And then these things should all be brought together in a series of lessons, which would be the curriculum content. And
I think they read one of the early, the argument for a balanced, curriculum
Okay,
that you and Enid produced. That was one of the first readings that we did.
okay,
It talks about that.
right. The interesting upshot of this, of course, was we lost our ERIC support program, and
Well,
Marjorie lost her job.
Well, the edict was that the only thing that to describe what ERIC is, ERIC was a place where people would send all their papers and all the books or whatever, journals that had been written about art education. And then we would have people write a little abstract about it and enter it in this database. So if you wanted to do research on, let's say, community centers and art, you could just type in the words community centers and art, and all this material would come up, everything that was ever written on that topic, way back to 1900s. It was a wonderful database. But Lonnie Duke thought that the only things that should go in were things that supported DBAE.
Right, right.
And I didn't think that that would be fair, because how can you research a field if the only thing that turns up is DBAE? So I started submitting things for entry on other topics, and that was not well thought of. And this is where I think he's talking about that I took over. He had to go to bat then one time. That one year, he had to fight really hard to get funding because they were going to cut it off. And he got it for another year, but I wouldn't stop doing that. And then he wrote that paper. That was even another. We're not going to deal with it.
It was really quite fascinating, and it's hard to imagine this time, because we were operating out of the Getty Foundation, and we had all this money. It's hard to, it's really difficult to imagine how people did things who didn't have any of that support, because we could do just about anything we wanted. I mean, as long as we were within their rules.
Right, we did what they wanted us to do.
Lonnie Duke made the decisions. You did it her way or you didn't do it. And that's where I ran into trouble when I published this. Because this argued really that DBAE was very important, but it was 1/3 of what should be dealt with. The community should be dealt with, and the subject matter, and the
Society.
I'm drawing blank there. Society should be dealt with in the good curriculum, and she didn't like that. Because she was very much for subject matter and subject matter only. And Dwayne had some of that same mindset. Dwayne and she got along famously because they agreed on that. Mickey and I were both, we had more of the bigger view of curriculum. And it was quite fascinating, because we would go to a public meeting, and every point of view that could possibly be represented would be there, of course. And in curriculum, I don't know if any of you know, for instance, the word curriculum, no one can agree exactly on how to define it. That's one of the points that's made in this book. And if you talk about subject matter curriculum, some people just simply reject that. They don't see that. They want a community-centered curriculum, or they want society-centered curriculum. And so everywhere we went, we ran into these brouhahas, really, of arguments and people very angry at Getty and angry at us because we'd written what's in the notebook there. And all of this was going on over, 4.5, 5 years?
You mean, yeah, maybe a little longer than that.
A little longer than that. The head of the Getty Foundation, I keep making Lonnie sound like she was head. She was really not. But she was head of art education in the foundation. There was a man whose name doesn't come to mind right now. Anyway, he was the head of the foundation. And he left. And when he left, the foundation decided art education was too tricky. They'd gotten into too many arguments with too many people. They didn't want to bother doing it anymore, and they just dropped the whole art education